broke as hell when it comes to relationships and
Yeah.
family and
Yeah.
things. And it's a sad thing to see. So I define wealth very differently. Of course, money matters. It's a mechanism to freedom, and it's a way
Absolutely.
for, not being in debt
Quality of
is it.
life and to be able to give
Hmm.
my kids experiences. That's what I really want the money for.
Yeah.
I want to be able to take my kids, to Thailand or to Europe and like
Hmm.
travel and see and experience and, visit orphanages and like
Yeah.
just and help people when it feels like the calling is right.
Hmm.
So that's what I really want the money for and for the security and not stress because
Yeah.
I wasn't raised wealthy. I remember my parents
Mm.
stressed. There was financially it was very challenging for the majority of my childhood. I think we started to get a little bit more like where, it wasn't necessarily paycheck to paycheck by maybe about middle school. And then high school, like we were a little bit more comfortable. Like my parents were able to start, you could tell like the life was like, maybe get like a little boat or something,
Yeah.
like be able
Yeah.
to like finally have
Yeah.
some pleasantries in life.
Yeah.
But no, I remember, I mean, my mom and so my mom was a single mom and we had been gifted a property from her mom, who was a real estate, like she's a real estate woman. And so this property in Tacoma, Washington is beautiful. 4.9 acres, lots of like a woods in the back and a
Oh, cool.
field, and really, it's a beautiful piece. But the house needed a lot of work. It was quite, it was a little dilapidated. Let's be
Mhm.
honest. I remember like holes in the very roof, like not holes like you could see through the sky, but like the water would come in because it rains a
Oh,
lot there, so like it
yeah.
would leak. And
Yeah.
sometimes I like, go up with my mom or whatever, and like, yeah, you could see like it's sinking in different places and stuff like that. So I remember that one winter, my mom and I were, she was I never felt the poorness, but I know that she
Mm.
did.
Mhm.
And we had, isolated ourselves to, like, one small room in the back of our house. It's now what the office is in the house. My parents still live there, by the way. Um,
Oh,
so she had a friend, Virgil, that worked for the power company that we had the power turned off and it was winter.
oh,
And it
jeez.
was so cold in the house that one time I remember I left our little tiny room back there and the rest of the house was ice cold. So cold that the toilet water in the toilet was frozen.
Oh, wow.
It's just
So
like
we're
a
talking
very
low 30s then.
yeah, very very distinct memory to me, and the
Wow.
power had been off for, long enough to where, like, the house was cold. But the back room we had a little tiny electric heater, and her friend worked for the power company, came and flipped our meter on for us, and he was like, "As long as it stays under this amount of like, the power company does
Oh,
won't
won't
notice
trigger
it,
anything, uh-huh.
won't trigger anything." And so until we could get heat back in the rest of the house. So I think in my formative years, we didn't have a lot of luxuries. We didn't travel as a family. We didn't do any of those things because it just wasn't ever a surplus until I think I was in high school before we ever even went camping. I remember complaining about it in high school. I was like, I've never, all my friends have always been camping. Like, can we do that? But,
Yeah.
you know,
He
um,
lives on 5 acres. He's with trees. He just go
yeah, yeah,
outside. Yeah.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I would. I mean,
Oh, would
just
you?
like yeah, just sleep outside. That's not, I'm not above it. Yeah. So, but it's good though. I mean, I'm glad I have the perspective. So I remember, um, wanting things and, being told like we can't afford it. That's also a reason why I went out for wrestling in high school was because it was cheap.
Mm,
It was, provided by the school. The only thing I had to come up with was money for wrestling shoes.
mm.
And I remember my freshman year of high school going out for the wrestling team. Well, I asked my mom first and she was like, I'm not convinced that this is something you're gonna, you know, like. We don't have a family history of wrestling, so this is out of the blue for me to decide to do that. I don't have older brothers. It's not a great explanation for why I went out for wrestling, except I think it was my calling.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so she's like, but I'm not gonna buy wrestling shoes. I'm not gonna spend what was it back then? I don't know, 16.99 on a pair of wrestling shoes or $20 until you show me that you're gonna wanna do this.
Yeah.
I showed up on the first day, and I just got my ass kicked. I mean, they clearly were just like, "We don't have time for girls that don't know how to wrestle and don't
Uh-huh.
belong here." But I fell in love with it.
Mm.
I loved it so much, and so I went about the first 2 weeks without any wrestling shoes, and then finally, I was like, "Mom, I'm gonna stick with it. I love it." And so she bought me wrestling shoes, but we were still, like, to that point where, um, she wasn't willing to, like, waste money on wrestling shoes because we
Sure.
still didn't have, like, it was still tight, like,
Yeah.
things were still
Yeah.
not easy to, so we couldn't afford gymnastics or any other extracurriculars. So everything was very much down to what the public school offered. In the winter, I wanted to do something, but to this day, I'm just not a good basketball player. Area of excellence, not basketball for
Yeah,
me,
okay.
not basketball.
Okay.
So very much a wrestler.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow. How many siblings do you have?
I have two siblings with my mom and my dad who raised me. And then I have two siblings by my biological father who
Okay.
I wasn't raised with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there were 3, 4 in this house with the leaky roof and frozen toilet?
My brother and sister didn't experience that.
Okay.
Brother is 7 years younger than me, and my
Okay.
sister's 15 years younger than me.
Okay.
So by the time my brother came around, again, my dad who raised me, since I was like 2.5 or 3, um, you know, he they were starting to turn the ship around, so it wasn't that bad. And he's handsy. He was working on the place. He was doing what he could
Yeah.
to fix it up. So, they had mostly turned that around by that time.
And they still live out there?
Yeah, they still live there.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful now. You'd never know. You
Yeah.
walk in and it's a really gorgeous place.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that shaped you for your resilience and your mindset? I mean, you're you're dealing with a lot, right? You have the interior side of
Right.
the home, you have the interior side of yourself, you have the exterior side of what kids around you were probably saying, and I'm guessing like weren't overly excited to invite others over out of fear of what they would think and things. And so how do you feel that shaped you, and do you contribute it to the success that you've had?
Oh, I mean, absolutely in parts. Honestly, I can say that I am somebody who hasn't been ever hyper focused on what others thought of me. It's never that I've had, not that I've never had an insecure moment or someone laughed at you as a kid that you were like, oh, that made you feel a little bit insecure. But generally speaking, I've just been sort of a free spirit and who I am. And even from a young age, I remember just disregarding what other people thought. And
Mm,
I didn't really care. So, or it didn't dawn on me.
mhm.
I just didn't give it thought. It might have even just been naivety. I don't know, but I know that it wasn't something I focused on a lot. So, with inviting people over and things like that, it was just never even something that I thought about. I mean, we were not that wealthy, but we were rich in a lot of ways.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
definitely had that strong family unit and kids loved to be at our house. My mom cooked all the time and and it wasn't dirty. It was just old.
Just leaky roof.
Yeah, just a leaky roof. And you remember I was like 3. So, I mean, I was really young when it was like that. That's why I remember it in parts. I remember being in the back room. I remember experiencing the cold because it was kinda like
Mhm.
physical shock when you go to the bathroom. And, you have, like, that one strong image of, like, as a kid, and I remember looking at the toilet water and being like, "It's ice."
Yeah.
That's what I
Wow.
remember, and the other things that I remember because I was really young was, goofing off with my mom in that back room, and there were no devices back then either,
Yeah,
so, I mean, it was
sure.
just, like, bonding for her and I.
Mhm.
I would eat cereal. I remember Lucky Charms, that was just, like, my cereal every day.
Mhm.
I would eat cereal, um, and even once the heat got turned back on, that stayed the master bedroom for a long time.
Okay.
So, yeah, the downstairs one was a bedroom, and now it's I guess I mentioned, like, an office study area,
Yeah.
and everything's upstairs. But the upstairs was quite unfinished. There was parts of it that weren't finished, but yeah, I mean, they worked hard on it, and so I think by the time that I was even school age, it was appropriate. Like,
The water
it
wasn't
was
frozen when you went to the
right. It
bathroom.
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't frozen. It
Yeah.
wasn't leaking. It was otherwise like still a lot more than a lot of people, even my friends had. A lot of them were in apartments or
Mm,
in the trailer courts or things
mhm.
like that. So,
Yeah.
I'm from Tecumseh, so
Yeah, right.
so we had a trailer court right across the street. It used to be fields and like I think when my mom grew up, like meadows and stuff. But it's an interesting dynamic in the area that I live in, like Midland area, because like you'll turn down one street and, you look to the right and there's like these beautiful homes that's like older, that's like got a little bit of acreage. And you look to the left and you'll see like dilapidated or like trailer courts. And so like it's like this weird intermingling of like all these different pockets. And so that was kind of like the same kids like I was going to school with, I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything like my house is I love, I'm rich, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe not consciously, but
Yeah.
I was never ashamed of,
Good for
where I
you.
came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need you an episode of Cribs over there.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, if we had footage of how it used to be. I remember we used to have, really, like, outdoor carpet, like, the really, like, pressed, like,
Oh, yeah,
outdoor,
yeah, like the rug, like an
the
outdoor
rugs.
rug?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like an outdoor rug, but, like, my mom had used that in to cover the floor in the
Oh, that'll
kitchen.
give you some rug burn,
Oh,
in a
yeah.
major way, like, even on your
Yeah.
bare
It
wow.
was like that, but, yeah, it's not fluffy like this. It was, like,
Right.
it was, like, something that you would use outdoors, but they or maybe, like, in a utility place or something like that. Maybe if you wanted carpet, but you don't want something that's, like, I don't know, comfortable.
Yeah,
So I remember we had that for a little while too, but I think it was the most inexpensive thing to do. So again,
sure.
it was like, they pieced the house together, and
Yeah,
it's a beautiful place now. Like I said,
yeah.
they're doing great. So they've worked really hard. Good, hard, blue collar working family.
Mhm. Did they talk to you about money? Did they talk to you about working hard? It's every parent's, goal that their kids grow up with more opportunity and with less hardship than, than what we grew up with, when you're dealing with things like that. Did they talk to you about how to do better, have more, importance of education or work? Did they sort of set the stage for you, do you remember, for, having a different outcome than what they were providing to you?
There are a couple moments that I draw back to clearly that were important, I think, in the development of my success. So, one I'll start with, I don't think was as important, but in a way, as I explain it, you'll understand why it was an integral part of me getting ready. But my mom, was under the same institutional belief that, going to college was important and it was something that we needed to do and I should pursue. So I did. I went to Central Washington University. They did help me a bit my freshman year. What they could, I think it was like 10,000 that they put towards my school, which is, that was great. Like, especially
Oh,
considering where we came from. Yeah,
right, yeah.
it was long, and this is back
Probably took them
in
a long time to save that.
2005.
Yeah,
So, I went, but I'm no longer of the belief that college is what
I
it's cracked
agree.
up to be. I just think that there's so much more to creating a well-rounded human than standard education.
Mhm.
So I'm not advocating that, but she did want better for me. And at that time, with the tools that she had and the things that she didn't accomplish, I think that she thought this is how I could provide the best opportunity is to like push my daughter in the direction of getting an education and making sure that she can, be successful.
Yeah.
So they supported me in that. And what I got out of college, the best thing that I got out of college was discovering mixed martial arts.
How did you come across it in college?
So my next door neighbor, my dorm mate, Rosalia Watson, she was into karate. And so she was looking for some kind of mixed martial arts program there at the school, a club sport. And she was like, "Oh, Miesha, there's this mixed martial arts thing. Do you want to come with me? I know that you wrestled." And I was like, no.
Oh, really?
I didn't wanna go at all because I thought it was karate. I thought I was gonna have to wear the suit and break the wooden boards and,
Oh, sure, like the Karate Kid.
yeah, and I was
Yeah,
just
the head
like,
bandana
that's
thing.
cute, but that's putting the art in mixed martial arts,
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
It's
yeah,
cute for kids and, like, there's some discipline, it's not all bad, but if you're talking about effectiveness out in the street,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not gonna help you.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't interested in it, and I thought that was just be way too awkward for me. So she went on her own the first day, and then she's like, "You gotta come. It's a bunch of old high school wrestlers because they had cut the wrestling program there like the year before."
Okay.
So I was like, "All right, fine." So I went with her, and my very first day, I learned how to choke people.
Oh, so it was jujitsu?
It was, yeah,
Oh, okay, so it wasn't
yeah. I
karate,
learned the
okay.
rear naked choke. It was my
Oh,
first ever move, and I was hooked.
ooh.
I was hooked.
You ever think that
Yeah.
one day you'd be a world champion with that
No.
that move that you learned the first day?
Oh my gosh, I never drew that back. That's
Yeah,
so funny. Yeah, it was the
yeah.
first submission I ever learned. Um, no, I certainly didn't. I told them that I had no interest in learning the striking part of it. So it was kind of like Tuesdays and Thursdays they would do this, and it was like one day was striking day, one day was grappling day. I was like,
Mhm.
I want every day to be a grappling day.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of been how I moved forward through the rest of my career. So yeah, I mean, my second year, I stopped going to college. I was like, this isn't for me. I don't like this. I'm not, this is the structure, the time. I didn't like it. And I was already so drawn to fighting. I had had a few fights by then that I was like, I don't know what this means, but I want to do this.
Mm,
But it was wild to do and say. I mean, it was
yeah.
very it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It was not logical at all, which I don't claim to be logical all the time. I
I
like to
mean,
be
so much of life is not logical in
right.
so many different ways,
So
but
much of
yeah.
business is not logical. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
sometimes people that
Yeah.
take the risk
Yeah.
is just willing to go for something that doesn't make a lot of sense, but they have the vision and they have the drive and they make it happen. It's
Yeah.
like you will figure if you don't have the know-how, you find the people that do,
Yeah.
you put the team together
Yeah.
and you make it, and guess what? You might not make it. You might fail, and you might be like, "Oh, I learned a
100%.
whole lot of
100%.
what not
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So now on this next mission of mine,
Yep.
I have,
Yep.
I have a better understanding of how to cross the T's and dot the I's." And that's been my experience, like both in business. I was a partner in a wellness center, and that one just really, it blew up in my face. I didn't lose money on it, but I lost friendships.
Mm.
And, we didn't have an operating agreement
Oh,
from the get-go, which I think is just very important, and so,
yeah.
we were 3 women, um, and the one that I was the closest to kind of, got the other one who was brought in just as a partner. She was the nurse practitioner, so they had 2/3
Two
of the
against
votes.
one kind of deal.
Yeah, and so they would kinda just, like, push me out of all the decisions. Basically, they were kinda like, "Well, if you have 2/3, we don't even have to inform." And I was like, "You do, because I've invested money into this company, and that's not fair." But then, I ended up talking to the other one. I was like, "I know, like, just hear me out. Like, this is what's happening. I just want you to be like, I want you to just know that here's, like, have you seen the spending? Like, cause that wasn't her job or, her, you know, I think she's too trusting, just like I
Mm.
was. And so, like, when I brought a few things to her attention, she's like, "Oh my god." And then, the tides shifted,
Mm.
and then we were really able to, like, go through everything and be like, "We wanna see the books, we wanna."
Yeah,
And so anyways, I got out of that one relatively unscathed, but I learned a lot of lessons.
for sure.
Learned a lot of
Yeah,
lessons.
and never signed a 50-50 operating agreement either.
Mm-mm.
Somebody always has to have
Oh, yeah.
majority. So, I mean, minimum 49-51 because 50-50 operating agreement, you'll find yourself in the same predicaments, as if there were nothing at all. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of lessons. I do want to back up a bit because I'm curious on when it is that you started this jujitsu thing. You weren't interested in striking. At what point did you figure out that you either didn't mind or you sort of enjoyed getting punched in the face?
Oh, yeah, that's so funny. Well, I went to watch MMA for the first time. So through this group, I got invited to, an MMA event, live fights, amateurs in Yakima, Washington. So, I made the drive and I just was like a moth to a flame, if I'm gonna be honest. And prior to that, to give you some context, it was an absolutely not, no way. I don't wanna punch anybody and I don't wanna get punched in the face. Like, I was, very much I mean, I think I still am, like, I'm feminine, and although I wrestled and I was competitive and I like to push myself, I had a misconception of what the sport was.
Mm.
I thought that it was violent, bar brawling, people with issues that, you know, they can't,
I mean, the 1.0 version of UFC were kind of
right.
that way. I mean, it
Yeah.
was much more
Remember the
violent back
labeling
then.
back then was like human cockfighting, it was
Yeah.
like violence, like,
Yeah.
brands didn't wanna put their name on it,
Yeah.
companies didn't want to affiliate, it was very, like, kinda, like, taboo at that time.
Mm.
So far from mainstream, and for me, I didn't see it much differently, if I'm gonna be totally honest. I didn't see it much differently. Plus, there were no women doing that at the time,
Yeah.
so it didn't even make sense for me to
Yeah.
think like, "Oh, there's
So
someone I could, like, model myself
mm,
after," you know? I think my first person that I really was like, this person's kinda like an icon for me, or like, somebody that I could aspire to be like was Randy Couture.
oh, sure.
I love
Yeah.
Randy because, he comes from that wrestling background, and he's just such a humble person, and
Uh,
I just thought he was amazing. Not only was he always undersized,
mm,
but he was just an incredible human, and I really liked that
yeah.
the way that he carried himself.
Yeah.
I know that you need the spicy individuals to, to sell the sport and make it interesting sometimes, but it was never going to be the way that I was going to do it. It's just not in my nature.
Yeah.
So I appreciated having someone like him that was just nose to the grindstone,
Mm,
good dude, and going out
mm.
there and whooping ass.
And that's the thing is let's just leave it on the mats, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Connor's made a lot of money. He's made
Yeah.
the UFC a lot of money. I mean, so there's a place for it, but you can't deny what happens on the mats, and so you go out there and you just swing.
Yeah.
right? And you give it all of that prep, all of that, every waking moment. I mean, so I think, and this is one thing that I do love about the martial arts world and jujitsu and things is that it genuinely it teaches you to be humble. Like you get
Mhm.
humbled so much, and you lose so much, right? Like things that you didn't like, you will size somebody up. You're like, oh, I got this fool. Like I've got like what? Like I'm gonna go Gordon Ryan on this bitch. Like what am I gonna finish him
Right.
with, right? And it's like, and then next like you're just tapping,
Right.
and it doesn't like it is. So
Like, then you have a Mikey Musumeci, situation where he's right? He's just
no, but I want
absolutely
to hear about it.
oh, I mean, who was it you were describing earlier? They were saying, like, the 2 brothers that are just, like, winning all the
Oh,
competitions right now.
yeah, Jackson and Samuel and the guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you were saying, like, one of them is, like, like, he's just different, like, he's playing with a
Oh,
Rubik's Cube
Sean.
or, like, he's not really,
Yeah.
like, you're not gonna, like, have what we would consider, like, standard conversation with
Yeah.
him, like,
Yeah.
it's just a different interaction. Mikey's very similar, I would think. I know Mikey, I don't know your guy.
Uh,
But
Shout out Sean
Mikey
Roberts, second jujitsu.
Mikey is, he's just he's such a savage and he's so good at what he does. But like if you like walk into a room, like he might be like, huh, just like he's just got this he wears glasses, he's just like tall, skinny, like you wouldn't know.
Unassuming.
Oh, so unassuming. I mean, he just carries himself in a way that says like bully me or pick on me, like, that he's the kid I'm sure was targeted.
Mhm.
I'm sure he was
Yeah.
as a kid growing up. People
Yeah.
probably bullied him. And I'm sure he could smoke like 99% of the people on the
Right.
face of this planet and blow your knee out
Yeah.
in like 2 seconds or
Yeah.
under. But you would never know because he carries himself so meek and
Yeah.
so just kind of like goofy.
You know who else that reminds me of? So, I mentioned I was in Vegas for a podcast, a while back, and, afterwards, we went to dinner, and there was a group of people there, and there's a guy standing there, tall guy, and I'm like, talking to him and, like, so nice, and I couldn't quite place him. It was Forrest
Oh,
Griffin. And, like, he was such a nice guy, like, like you're saying, like a calming person that I'm like, "Dude, where do I know you?" And he's like, "Maybe the UFC." Like, "Holy shit," right?
yeah,
But it was like, he was such a nice human, like what you're saying, like,
unassuming.
I was so unassuming, I wasn't placing him as
Right,
this lethal human that he
right,
actually is, and where I've seen him,
right.
put in so much work. It was yeah, so I totally get
Well,
that.
because where the sport started was a lot of steroided, chest puffing
Yeah,
monsters that, and there was a lot of mismatches too. So,
yeah,
you get the people that were just out of the audience that would
yeah,
like come in and just fight for a night. So, it definitely the sport started with that misconception. But
yeah,
then you got these people who are just really brilliant and they're technicians
mhm,
and they're basically playing chess with their bodies. And
yeah,
that's really what I signed up for was
yeah.
that strategy of disarming a human while they're trying their best not to be disarmed is like it's fun.
And it's one-on-one. It's
It's
like
fun.
you match up and it's
Yeah.
like, somebody's not gonna do well here,
Yeah.
and I don't want it to be me, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we competed some when we were in California, and, my wife actually just competed. She took, silver at, her first IBJJF
Oh,
tournament, yeah,
nice.
and, World Masters, so that was cool. It was the first time she'd gone. We're very fortunate to get to train under Gigi,
Mhm.
with the Alliance crew, but, I don't wanna stick on jujitsu or UFC too much because there's so much more to you
Yeah.
and there's
Let's
so
talk
much
about
going
it.
on. But I do have a question that I think is very relevant before we move off of the UFC topic.
Okay.
How does one get the job to hold the towel when you have to strip down to nothing for weigh-ins?
This is that's a when you're a cornerman, that's what you sign up for.
Sign me up. So, yeah. No, I was like, how do you like how do you like you pick a straw? How do you get that?
Yeah.
That's my last question about UFC.
Okay, wait, before you shift
Yeah.
gears,
Okay.
you asked me like a couple things, and I want to circle back so real quick about how my mom supported me, and
Yeah.
like, there was
Yeah.
one more thing I was going to say, which I feel like is the most important, was her style of parenting me was always You can,
Oh,
and you will. Uh, that's it's very simple. There wasn't anything really more to it than that other than her belief in me of whatever I was gonna do. She was never a naysayer of my dreams, you
which I
know?
think is interesting because I remember your podcast with Rogan and your father and or grandfather, I'm trying to remember, was the opposite, right? Was didn't take that same approach, but
Correct.
but
Yeah.
you chose to listen to your mom instead of
Mhm.
these other influences
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah, my grandfather was very, pessimistic.
Mm,
So my dad, Rob, again, came in, at about 3 years old. His father, quite, standard sexist,
mm,
chauvinistic, and just a hard man to please. Not that I set out to do that by any means. I was actually, quite happy to do the opposite.
mhm,
'Cause I didn't like people that treated me that way. It
sure,
felt very dismissive. So I'm like, well, he dismisses of you too. Um, so yeah, it was definitely the opposite. And my dad wasn't really either way. It wasn't that
okay,
he was like super supportive or super not supportive. He was just kind of distant, I would
okay,
say, as I was becoming a teenage girl and woman. But my dad struggled for a little bit with addiction.
okay.
So, he had a really bad accident and he got put on opiates and
Oh,
it
geez.
just never, it became a problem for a while.
Mhm.
But I'm really proud of him. He's been sober now, I think he just had his 10-year anniversary.
Oh, wow,
So
good
it's
for him.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got a great mentality. I mean, my dad is a hardworking, can overcome anything kind of person.
yeah,
But we all have our trauma that we haven't had the space to unpack or the
for
skills or
sure.
the tools or I think there's a level of wisdom that comes with age, with time. So I think he was awfully young when my mom and him got together. He's about 3 years younger than my mom. So my mom had me at 22. So he probably would have been like 21? He was just a kid,
Yeah,
still such a young man. He was in the military.
okay,
He was a Green Beret.
okay.
So, he's got what it takes when he puts his mind to something. And, he did finally, but for a little bit there, he kind of was swept away. And so my teenage years were really rough because we just didn't have anything in common. I felt like he didn't care about me.
Mm,
And the things that he did do was kind of the only things he really did at that time was to be assertive, or to like, punish or discipline.
mm.
And so there wasn't a whole lot else. So I didn't have a strong connection. So, he never came to like wrestling matches, nothing like that. Um, so we didn't even tell my dad that I wrestled for a long time.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, I didn't even tell him because I was like, I didn't really care what he had to say about it.
Mhm,
And my mom was like, again, that's that person that's like, I will be the buffer, like I'll be the buoy between the boat and the dock, which was my dad and I at that time.
mhm,
And she's like, I won't tell you can't do something if you want to do it. You do it. And so I did, and I fell in love with it, and she supported me full on, full bore. She was at as many meets and matches and things that she could be. Of course, my mom worked, and it was always difficult to make ends meet, and especially to not realizing that the current state of my dad. So financially, it got even a little bit rough there again.
yeah,
So we were all doing our best to get through it, and I'm just grateful for the whole experience. But
yeah,
yeah, my mom, I remember when I was a little girl, I wanted to be an astronaut so bad.
mm,
And I would tell her that. And she would always just be like, you will.
that's cool.
Like, you will. And that was like that concrete faith in the most important person in my life.
Mhm,
Let me know that like I could do whatever I wanted.
mm,
And as a kid, I thought that would be an astronaut. But she, like, literally had such solid belief in me that I could feel it, like, shake me to my core as a child.
wow,
So, I think when I started to pursue whatever it was, I had that voice in the back of my head that was like, "You will.
mm,
You can and you will."
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So now that you're a mom and a wife yourself,
Yep.
as you look back, how do you process it? You you've shared, like, as the adolescent, the child, the 3 years old, the frozen water, but now here you are, mom and parent. Now we see things differently, right?
Yeah.
So, There's two opportunities at that parent-child relationship. The first is when we're the child, and then the second is when we're the parent. And so how do you see things now?
Mm. Well, I could understand, like, in my wildest dreams. My daughter does a little bit of wrestling. She does a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but not competitively. She's a sweetheart. She's more of a lover than a fighter. She
Mm,
prefers to dance and things like that. But
mhm,
if I were picturing my daughter getting into a fist fight and there's nothing I could do about it, I could understand how it could age you real quickly. So
mm.
my poor mom, and she has no context. I remember her showing up to my very first fight and just being like, "Oh my gosh." So
I could imagine, yeah.
yeah, so my poor mom, but she was always there to support me, and so I lead with that same energy of, "You can and you will,
Mm,
and I wanna be there to support you through everything."
mhm,
Um, but I think where I differ a little bit is just I have more tools available to me to understand how children learn best, and, my mom, again, she put me in private school in 1st and 2nd grade. I went to Catholic school. I was like, "Ugh." It was horrible. I was a bad kid for a few years. Like, I think about it. I was because I was used to being with my mom and almost exclusively my mom. And so when I was put in kindergarten, I hated it.
mm,
I hated it. I would hide under the desk. I would not listen to the teacher. Because I didn't understand why I had to be inside for so many hours. I hated it. I just wanted to be outside playing. That's what I
yeah.
love to do. I love to be outside. I love to be in the nature. I love to be with my mom.
Mhm,
So I think I was resentful at the whole situation, which now I realize is a system to snuff out the light of kids
yeah,
anyways. I mean, the whole
yeah.
point of going to public school is, you can look this up anywhere, but a lot of it had to do with the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah, just preparing
creating
you for work.
factory workers. They wanted workers, not competition,
Mm,
no free thinking, fall in line, do as you're told. So no wonder I hated it because I didn't come from that. It was a free spirit. I was, twigs in my hair, dirt under my fingernails, mom loving, like rough and tough kind of girl. And
mm.
that's who I was. And so to put me in like a cage,
In a Catholic school, no less, which
oh yeah.
is
Kindergarten, I was in public school. And then I think she decided I was so bad. I failed kindergarten, which I don't even understand how it could be
it's
a thing.
impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Like, how can you even I was held back, right? How can you even do that to a 5-year-old? I don't understand. Like, what are we doing?
Mm,
I have a 5-year-old. They don't fail at anything.
yeah.
They're incredible. Like, you just have to give them a little, like, lift, a little boost, a little guidance.
Mhm.
But
You
they're
can and you will.
they're incredible.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was like my son is amazing. My daughter's 7, so, I went through 5 with her, but, like, um, just fostering a love for learning as opposed to forcing memorization and, like, forcing, a learning in a way that makes you hate it. I hear so many kids, "I hate reading. I hate going to school. I hate learning." It's like, "Oh my gosh, like, we're missing the mark." Learning should be like it's so fun,
Yeah.
but we gotta foster it in a better way. So I have a totally different stance and approach when it comes to education, like, and what real life education looks like, preparing kids to really be prepared for the real world. You know, as somebody we were talking about operating in an area of excellence,
Mhm.
which I think is important to be able to distinguish. I'm not a fan of like everyone deserves a trophy. I don't agree with that because
Yeah.
I don't think it helps people distinguish their area of excellence. Everyone has an area of excellence. I don't care who you are. You have something that you will get a trophy in, like you'll be amazing at. But if you get it in everything, how do you know what it is?
You're right.
Right? We're confusing kids.
Right.
So, and sports itself is not meant to be inclusive. I'm sorry, but it's not. By design, it is competitive
Mhm.
and that's okay.
Mhm.
Like you got to also learn how to lose. You got
Yeah.
to learn how to like
Yeah.
suck
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
resilient and show up anyways if you want to be better at it or find a new direction that you are great at. Um so where was I even going with that? I don't even remember. I lost my train of thought.
It started off with the failing kindergarten
Yeah.
and then the Industrial Revolution
Yeah.
and
And
then,
kids and
yeah,
what
kids.
else?
Yep. And,
Quick pop quiz. What did I say?
yeah.
I can't even remember, so don't feel guilty if you don't.
Well, I
I
don't
was
know
on a
exactly
tangent there.
where
No,
I
that's
mean,
not
but
recalling it.
obviously bucking the school system
The
and what
school
it's
system.
doing to the
Yeah.
snuff out the light and in the kids and,
Yeah.
so
There was a point I was gonna make, but I don't know. Maybe it'll come back to me. But anyways, I think, I am doing it different as a parent now than my mom did, but she did the best she could. I'm doing the best I could, and my daughters and my son are gonna do better
yeah,
than I do. But yeah, I think trimming the fat, operating in an area of excellence, and oh, that
yeah,
was my
that's
point.
what
That reminds
yeah.
me. I know as a professional athlete and a former world champion, what operating towards a goal of excellence really looks like and how many hours, I mean, and how much time it takes to truly be successful at
Mhm.
something, to truly um, consider yourself a master of a craft
Mm.
takes a long time.
Yeah.
Now, how many hours do you think that we spent going to school in our most formative years from age 5 to 16 or so, and then you continue on if you're going to college? How many hours? And can we truly say, even let's just go to high school, that we are a master at a craft of anything
No, for
when we
sure.
graduate high
No
school?
way.
Not even
No.
close. You know how great these kids could already be, how much of a leg up that they could already have if we were focusing more on teaching kids how to think, not what to think. Fostering that individual, so
Yeah.
that's what I want for my kids. It's like nobody's gonna tell you how or what to think. And, we have deep conversations and um my daughter, I think at this point believes in reincarnation. And I'm like, I'm not sure if I do. I think that maybe we only get one. And she's like, well, I think we might. And it was like, and that you have every right to like explore that. I'm still exploring. I
Sure.
still haven't settled on what I think. But I like that she has her own thoughts and I
Yeah.
I, I never want to fill her. She's not a vessel to be filled. She's a light to be lit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, school does a fantastic job of confusing, snuffing,
Stealing individuality.
stealing, yeah, innocence. I mean, um, which I think makes for a amazing segue into, like, what is Miesha Tate doing these days?
Yeah.
Or can we even talk about
Of
that?
course. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So, for me, a lot of the things that I'm transitioning into, for one, as a professional athlete, I am moving from Misha the fighter to Misha, women's health, hormones, optimization, and performance expert. So I'm learning, a ton as I go, and there's not enough research as it is out there for women. But what I do know, I find is not common knowledge. Now, I myself operated as a small man almost all of my career, and I'm not. I'm a woman, and I have 2 kids now, and I
What do
never.
you mean by that? You
Yeah,
operate
let me explain to you.
Okay.
So you operate on a 24-hour hormone cycle, and you get testosterone every 15 minutes.
Okay.
I operate on a 28-day hormone cycle, and I get testosterone for a small period of time once a month.
Okay.
Okay, so hormonally and biologically, we understand that men and women are different, but the systems are still in place to treat women as though we operate as men, or we should operate as men.
Okay.
We all kind of blindly follow that lead. We live in a patriarchal society, which is fine. Like I'm not saying anything against men. I think men are awesome. I love men. I'm not a man hater.
You're married to one.
I'm married to a man. And I love him. But no, we need strong men in our society. Like men are the backbone of true strength. And like men are so foundational for what we do. And they bring a great balance to everything. To I think what women bring in a traditional sense, which again I'm not saying, you can't cross over, like women can't do this. And that's not my point. My point is that when women operate against their bodies, oftentimes we hurt ourselves.
Hmm.
80% of autoimmune diseases belong to women.
I did not know that.
Yeah. But you probably knew that women are complicated in a sense, right? Like you've probably figured
100%.
that out,
I'll
right?
be married 20 years
Okay.
this June in a
So
month.
so so some of it but you haven't connected the dots. When women operate like men or expected to show up consistently, like you are most likely able to. I mean, you're a human, so some days you'll have worse. But hormonally, your profile is basically set up to bring consistency to you every day.
Mhm.
For us, no day is the same. We get a surge of estrogen that's going up by 900% in the beginning of our cycle. And then we hit ovulation where we get a little bit of testosterone. Sex drive is a little bit higher. We're feeling like we're feeling a little bit, we're getting a taste, small taste of what it
A
feels like to be
a
a
man.
man.
Yeah.
And then it goes away. Not only does it plummet, but we skyrocket in progesterone, 2,400%, which is a completely opposite night and day hormone from not only estrogen, but also testosterone. It is a stay home and nest and do less
Mm.
kind of hormone. So we're coming from, queen of the mountain, kind of feeling like we can kind of maybe keep up with the hubs for a little bit, to a crash of like, none of that applies anymore. This is too much for me. I need to delegate. I need support. When we don't know that, we operate still pushing ourselves to operate the way that hormonally we were kind of able to do in that first half of the cycle,
Mhm.
it just doesn't apply in the second half. So, as an athlete, when I was showing up that way, I was crushing my progesterone. I was messing with my cycle. Hormonally, I was in in a bad place. You hear about women kind of like losing their cycle or going through what's called amenorrhea.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's that part, but then the relationship part too,
Mm.
because, you guys show up and you're like, "Oh, why could I ask this of her last week and it was fine?
Yeah, where's that booty at?
And then like this
Oh,
week,
she's
it's
mad
like
at me.
non-existent." Yeah.
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 Yeah. But
Like,
she's mad
what?
she's
Where
not
is that?
yeah.
Not only she's mad at you, but she's not like as sexually charged as she was the week before. And
Right.
everything molehills feel like mountains. That's the truth. So this is where we can save relationships and marriages by understanding what women are going through and just providing a little support. Because if you could do that for her, she's going to show up for you in other ways that will blow your mind. I
Mhm.
promise you that. So but it's understanding that. And so I think for me, that's where my brand is transitioning to, is really helping women understand how to operate within healthy, parameters of what we're biologically designed to do. Now, I don't believe in, cycle training, like you show up cyclical training in the way that, you show up according to a calendar or what a device is telling you. No, you have to have a large part of that needs to be intuition. Like,
Mm.
how do you feel today? If you still feel great, go do it. But if you don't,
Mhm.
you have permission because you're not a
Mhm.
small man. It's okay if it's not
Mhm.
the same for you every day.
Yeah. That's super fascinating. I mean, I've worked around many doctors, worked with many docs in all kinds of spaces for the last over 7 years, and I've never had it explained in that way before. That's super interesting, and I work with a lot of docs and clinics that specialize in women's health, but
Right.
they're focused on menopause or perimenopause,
Hmm.
and which is a different phase of
Correct.
life.
Yeah.
I I've never heard of anybody addressing it the way that you are and explaining it the way you are. That's super interesting.
Well, thank you. A lot of these doctors know, I mean, that's where I'm learning, about the hormones. I'm obviously, not be in a lab suit and I'm not a clinician.
It's not Arizona genius.
It's not, but I talk to these people and I do understand what we go through and I read the
Yeah.
books. One of my favorites was The Period Brain by Dr. Sarah E. Hill,
Mm.
who is a PhD and, great. What my point is, um, there is a missing link between the doctors and super smart people
Mm-hmm.
and the practical
Mm-hmm.
people. And I wanna bridge that. I
Yeah.
wanna help say, like, this is what the super smart people that you can't understand what they're saying,
Yeah.
a word
Yeah.
sandwich
Yeah.
because it's like, it's too much.
Yeah.
And this is how to apply it, not only from a female athlete's perspective who's done it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but as a mother, and, I hurt myself. I really hurt myself, and I hurt my family and it was just by being unwell for a while. And that's crazy because you think, right, my body's my business. I look mostly, especially when I'm in, fight shape, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't push myself to be that lean anymore. I try to really work with my body and
Mm-hmm.
eat enough and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But I look like a pillar of health. Like most people will be like, "Oh, she's got all these things on," but I'm hurt. I was
Like
hurting
inside.
myself. I was hurting,
Yeah.
not only emotionally, but like hormonally.
No, that's what I mean is
Yeah.
yeah,
All
yeah,
on
from
the
like
inside,
a gut
hormones.
biome, hormone.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
was all awry because it was
Mhm.
too extreme for what I was trying to do. But if you are a female athlete and you want to be extreme, I can help you do that
Mhm.
in the best way,
Mhm.
right? There's always going to be sacrifices for anyone physically, man or woman, to be the best and the greatest. But I don't think that women have to pay as big of a price, especially down the road, as they do if they can learn a little bit of adjustments, a little bit of how to train, fuel, and do it differently, not according to male model, which is the mistake that I had, and I know I've paid the price
Well,
big
you
time
were
for
one of
that.
the first. I mean, you were like you said, there was not I mean, how many women were in the UFC and were coming up the way that you're
Not
I mean, like
many. Yeah, not many.
no, not many at all. So,
And
you
even
had to do
competing,
trial and error and
yeah,
figuring it out.
even competing in the top 10 in the world, in my mid-30s and up after 2 kids.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's
I mean,
wild.
there's, a whole other perspective too, is even being an athlete and a competitor post
And a
children.
mom
There's just,
with all those hormone changes that
all the
happen.
changes. Yeah, it's wild. And of course I'm nearing or approaching those perimenopause years, which is also is different for women. It's kind of like being shoved off of a cliff for hormones where you guys kinda get andropause or a slow decline.
Or
Um
you just get pelleted or something,
yeah.
and then just
Well, and you
you
guys could
just
get
keep it
testosterone for
at
so long. We just got the
900.
black label lifted off of
Yeah,
estrogen,
right,
due to
which is
RFK.
crazy.
Yeah, one of our
Uh,
primary driving hormones we didn't have
what was
access
a
to for
Black
so
Label
long.
doing on that to begin
It
with?
was so silly. The research was never saying that,
No.
that estrogen is causal of breast cancer. It could be problematic if you already had breast cancer, okay?
Okay, but
So
so can a cookie when you
r
or any kind of
yeah,
high sugar,
yeah,
any right? So,
anything,
yeah, it's wild.
exactly. So, yeah, thankfully that's, changed.
Mhm.
So, that's good.
So is your niche then high performing athlete types, like, aggressively pursuing a big goal up to the age of 35, female? Like, what would
No,
you describe your
no, there
sure,
are
sorry.
those women that I absolutely talk to, but I'm happy to elaborate for female athletes, but I want every woman to know this
Mhm.
because I don't care if you don't even work out, you never have and you never will. There are
Mm,
still things that are, you know, pretty across the board. There's changes that happen every single month for most of us. Um, but yeah, so I just want this to be more widespread knowledge. And I honestly I want more men to know this too.
I was just going to say
I want guys to
yeah.
know this because most guys, you'd be surprised, men are actually more, they have more questions and are more reciprocal a lot of times than women are because
Yeah.
women are still sometimes, we're so, we could use the word indoctrinated. We're so of the thought process that we've got to do more. We've got to keep up. We've got to continue to do more, 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 more. That goes back to why I believe that 80% of autoimmune diseases are with women because an autoimmune is a fight within the body.
Mm.
Your body is fighting with itself. It
Against
doesn't
itself, yeah.
recognize itself. And what do we know is horrible for autoimmune diseases is stress.
Mhm.
Well, what's causing stress? When you work against your body,
Mm.
right? So when you don't listen,
Compounding effect.
yeah, when you don't listen, your body's telling you, I need rest. I need to eat more. No, I have 1,200 calorie diet or I'm going to be fat. It's like, whoa, first of all, 1,200 calories only works it doesn't work for that many people in
You
general.
don't want any lean muscle mass and you want,
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah.
no energy and
But
be
there are
skinny,
still,
but
yeah. And but there's still this idea that calories matter most. I'm not saying that calories matter at all. They do. But your metabolism will increase with nutrition and food. It means that the rate at which you burn calories will increase the more that you
yeah, the
eat.
more your body's convinced that it's not starving, it doesn't
Correct.
have to hold on to it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you'll burn more for free. So you get to eat more food, but you've got to work with the system. You just have to know how to do that. How do we do that? Did you know this that women burn 1 to 300 more calories in the second half of the cycle? It's a luteal phase. I call it's a luteal phase, but the way that I remember this, because it took me a really long time, is that I feel like I'm being looted of my energy, like
Oh,
stolen,
interesting, yeah,
because
right.
it's just not the same as the first half of my cycle. So I'm like, like I'm being robbed a little bit. So it's like my luteal phase. Um, but in that phase, every single month, the body's preparing for pregnancy. So at ovulation, that middle point, body thinks you're pregnant until you're not.
Mhm.
So it's like the beginning of a pregnancy every month. That's expensive,
Mm.
metabolically expensive. So we burn 1 to 300 more calories. Have you ever heard of a diet plan taking that into consideration?
No, I'm not.
No. Have you heard of women getting hungry or craving chocolate before their
I
cycle though?
have.
You have. Right. So and what do women do? They'll
I
either
eat chocolate.
they'll
My
eat
wife
chocolate and they'll
yeah.
feel guilt. I can't stick to a diet. Oh my gosh, I'm just so like, I'm stuck. I'm terrible.
Mm,
No, your biology's screaming at you saying, I need more energy. I need more fuel. So, like, how can we do it better? It doesn't mean you need to go down 2 bars of chocolate or a tub of chocolate ice cream.
yeah.
We could have done it better in the beginning if we had known that this was coming. We could have fueled you so you wouldn't have had that craving, so you wouldn't have had, in that way, we could adjust for that.
Mhm.
And then, by the way, you also probably aren't going to bite your husband's head off
Right.
because you are able to be like, you know what? I realize what I need now, and it's this and not this, and you just feel better.
Mm.
That's improved quality of life for everybody. Kids,
All parties
husband, all
involved.
parties involved. It's way better to do. And I find most husbands actually love to show up for their wives.
For sure.
They love it. They
Yeah.
just need the opportunity. Just need they ask. Like, hey, I'm going through this. That's been a big game changer for Johnny and I. Because in the first part of our relationship, we've been together almost 10 years now. I had no idea about this stuff.
Mhm.
Zero. I was a professional athlete.
Yeah.
My body is my business. I had no idea. So it was hard, and I would show up irregularly, and I would be angry, and I would be frustrated, and I wouldn't know why, and I'd be consumed with guilt, and I'm so sorry, and like, oh, I just started my period. Now I know. So I knew that, but I didn't know that there was so much behind it that's actually like justifying it.
Yeah, it's kinda I mean, yeah, there it's like, oh, the cramps and there's pain, so
Mhm.
you're irritable,
Right.
right? And,
And
you're
then
losing a lot
those
of blood, so you're
massive
low energy because your
right.
iron levels are down. I mean, it's very, like, rudimentary
Right.
what people know, at least what I know, and that's
Yeah.
why I don't lose sight of the guys that need to know this stuff as
Right.
well, right? I'm really glad that you brought that up because I talk about that with these docs that really are in the women's health space. It's like we're apes. Like what we know is that, oh, it's about to start because she's miserable. So that means that,
Uh-huh.
like, I need to create distance from her and just, like, not I need to walk on eggshells, and
Yep.
then I know there's gonna be no sex for about a week,
Yep.
and then
Yeah.
things will start to kinda clear up and go back to normal, right? But, like,
Yep.
that's the ape way of thinking about it,
Right.
and that's not truly us supporting her. It's not setting ourselves up
Right.
for success,
Well,
and
there's a
so
lot of guesswork for you guys too. I mean, you
yeah,
know what happens because you have an experience with it, but you don't truly understand it. If you understood it, you could be preventative. And if you're preventative, then none of this crazy stuff has to happen. Like
yeah,
this big ups and downs and her dealing with guilt and these
yeah,
things, you guys could all operate so much smoother
mm,
and you support her. And then, I think most women really appreciate that in a ways that, I think our male partners would also appreciate.
for sure,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's a winning recipe,
It's a winning recipe.
100%.
Yeah, it is.
Do you
So, yeah,
have your programs
don't
built out yet, or
not
is this
entirely. I'm
okay,
educating through my platforms, but we are working now
building
on
that out?
building those proteins. So there's a lot of information. If you go and you look on my Instagram or any of my social medias, you're definitely gonna understand what I'm about and you're
Yeah,
gonna get information.
yeah,
But as far as programs go, we're working on it.
yeah,
And I'm really excited to bring that with firsthand experience of like doing it wrong and doing it right. And it's night and day difference. And one of my
yeah,
biggest benefits is the health of my relationship with my husband. That's
yeah,
massive.
yeah,
He
you
shows up
gotta be
for
a
me.
product of the product.
He shows up for me.
Yeah,
And I'm like, honey, I'm like entering the luteal phase. I'm still feeling great, but just giving you a heads up. And then I'm like, a few days later, I'm usually like, okay, like I'm at the part of it that's really hard for me to do the extra things. He's like, I got you. I'm gonna pick up the kids today.
mm,
Take that extra 30 minutes and like
yeah,
just I got you. Or like
yeah,
I'll take him to practice tonight. Like take some time.
yeah,
And it's not much. It's not like it's not a huge ask, but it is a huge relief and it's
sure,
so appreciated. And it's really only like a few days
yeah,
that you kind of really have this peak where you just like it's hard. It's a nesting hormone.
yeah.
Because you're like when you get pregnant, like
You
like
gotta sit
women go
on
into
this,
nesting
yeah,
mode,
yeah,
we're loaded with progesterone.
mm,
So that progesterone just continues to skyrocket and wants us to like fix everything and be home and safe and
mhm,
prepare for a baby.
mm,
So whether you ever want to have kids or you don't, like as a woman, it's irrelevant because your body is doing that to you anyways. And this is the tomfoolery. Like we don't kind of just get what we need is less is more a little bit.
yeah,
And if we can have people who can show up for us a little bit in that time,
mhm,
like we will be so much better moving forward into the next part instead of carrying resentment
yeah.
once the good part of the cycle comes because I'm still pissed at you because you didn't know how to show up for me because I didn't even know how to ask you to show
And
up
that
for
2
me.
weeks is ruined, and then you're right back in
Right.
the like, it's
Exactly. And this is how,
terrible
you could
cycle.
end up in divorce, I feel like, because it's just it's so hard if you don't understand it. But it's
Napoleon Hill, had a saying that if you help others get what they want, you will get what you want in return,
yeah.
right? And
And
so
I say if you give the body what it needs, it will give you what you need.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I feel like, the winning situation between you and the mister is that, first of all, you've educated him to understand that there's science behind when you say you're in a certain phase or there's a certain
Mhm.
thing. Like, you're not using it as an excuse. Like,
Never. Let me clarify that too. That's never an excuse for behavior. I don't believe in that either. Like women
uh,
should not be like, well, I can just act however I want. Because no, that's not what I'm saying.
yeah,
We don't excuse that. But we could help her like not get to a place where she feels so frustrated that she's going to like implode. Because
yeah,
it is a challenging time to navigate for a woman. Can
yeah,
we just support her in that? But
yeah,
like, yeah, we can't use it as a crutch to be like, I'm gonna be crazy. That here gets my luteal phase. I get to be wild. Like, no,
yeah.
it's not that.
But you're not. So I mean, you're the nesting is. that's what you're saying. You're like,
Yeah, it's an
there's
introverted hormone. It
mhm,
doesn't want us to do more, it wants us to do less.
interesting.
And sometimes it could just be a little bit less. It's like a little bit of delegation, and
But that's where the
that's enough.
communication is so important, right? It's
Yeah,
like, I'm like Luna m mild, Luna major,
right.
like, right?
Luda,
Like
Luda. Yeah, like luteal.
luteal. Oh, yeah, ludi.
Yeah,
Whatever,
yeah,
I'm yeah, Luda major. You need to coin
yeah.
it's what you need to do. You need to trade.
Right.
We're not gonna release this until you trademark something. Yeah,
Now we're
but
gonna really
yeah,
delay this thing.
we're gonna delay this. But,
Um,
no, I think that's great because, the you know, it is a win. Like, the the body's being given what it needs. It's
right.
proactive in nature. Um, it's you can anticipate it, and I just think through the lens of a guy in this whole thing, which is I give me tools to be able
Yeah.
to help, and I'm more than happy to help.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
but give me the knowledge to know that it's
absolutely.
not like this is legitimate, and
Mhm.
I'm like this is a real
Yeah.
thing, right? And
Some couples I've heard use, like, candles, like, so if it's awkward to, like, say it, which, for me, it's not, but, you could start out with, like,
in a relationship,
you'd light a certain color of, like, a candle, like, you'd have a candle.
if you're in a relationship and you have to light a candle because you
Oh,
can't
that's
communicate
true. It's true.
what Luda
But
phase you're in, there's
that's
Misha, you
true,
got
but,
more work to do.
but there's, all different tactics that work for different people. I mean, it's true. You'd think you should just be able to say it, but, like, sometimes, I don't know,
But you can't
maybe less is
communicate. You
more.
got to light a candle. You're like, what do you
It's
do?
true. It's true. If
Like
you think
Morse
about it, you're
code?
like,
What do you?
yeah,
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 come
you're
on.
right.
Yeah,
Some couples just, because it's like every
work on
month, like, maybe
communication.
sometimes you don't wanna have to report, you know? Takes a little pressure maybe off, like, the woman,
Like
just be like, "Hey, I could say I'm not even gonna say anything, I'm just gonna, you see the candle lit, you know what's up. I don't wanna talk to you right now." 'Cause that can happen too.
I've heard of things like that with swingers where they'll put a gnome or the pineapple or they'll
Oh
put
my
the light.
gosh.
So
I just learned
I've
about the
heard of those
pineapple
kinds of
thing
things.
recently. I have
Oh,
a
you did?
pineapple MMA shirt because it was in
Is it
Singapore. I
upside
lived in
down?
Singapore. It's not upside down, thank goodness, because I was like, "Well, I'm still gonna wear it. I guess people can think what they wanna think because I
Yeah,
still like the shirt."
yeah,
But, it's pineapple MMA, there's one in Singapore.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you gotta. It's
but is it upside
if
down
it's right
pineapple?
side
That's
up,
what it is?
then I think so. Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. And sometimes just my wife she's so reserved, right? Like there'll be times where if she gets a pineapple and I'm there and it's in the car, I will purposely turn it upside down and walk with it. She'll be like, "You idiot." She like
It's
try
just
to wait till I'm not paying attention. She'll fix it. I'll put it back. Yeah, I
that's
think so.
funny.
I like that shock and awe
Yeah.
thing. Um, I wanted to. How are we doing on time, by the way?
Oh, let's take a look, see. Yeah, I've got about, like, 20 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So what is your plan of attack then? Like, what do you see this? Where do you see this going? Like, what? How do you know
I
when
should
you
be
can
asking you
ride?
that. Like, what should my plan attack be? Look, I am figuring it out as I go, and I think that the what I've learned, okay, this is what I've learned so far is, I'm not a businesswoman. Um, but I'm learning as I go. Is that a strong team matters.
Yeah.
And again, I used to be, like we mentioned, a DIY kind of person. I wanted to do everything myself. I mean, if my couch needed to be refinished, I wanted to be the one to refinish. I want to learn all the skills. I have a real hunger for knowledge. I
Mhm.
love to learn how to do things. I love to work with my hands. I think that if I had not been a fighter, I may have found myself like doing construction
Oh,
or something like that. I love to build things. I love to create things, and I could see myself really enjoying that. So with that being said, there are things that are too much of a time and energy suck that I've had to relinquish some of my stubbornness of like, I'm going to figure this out. I have to be able to do everything on my own. It's like, well, it's not realistic for, um, long-term success.
yeah. Well, I mean, you're a world champion. There's not a large population whatsoever that can legitimately say they're a world champion. And if there's anybody who knows what it takes to get to the top of the top, it's a world champion, right? And I mean, of course, you're the one that's in the ring, but how many people were surrounded around you constantly, whether it was nutritionists, whether it's grappling, whether it's stand up, it's kicking. I mean, you constantly had coaches, you constantly had experts in
Mhm.
your corner. I mean, you go into the cage and you have what, 3 4 people that are all
Yep.
yelling at you simultaneously, right? So in business it's no different. I mean, you're going to be the best at what you're the best at doing. And I love to get my hands dirty too, and I love to do things, but um a talk that Steve Jobs did many years ago, like in the 80s. And he was in a college room, and he was asked by one of the kids in there that what's one of the what was the question? What is the one of the greatest lessons that you ever learned at Apple? Um and he said that he took I want to say he took like 19 seconds of just thought, cuz I mean, he was really going to answer this in a meaningful way. Um, and he said, as much as I want to dive in and I want to try to fix things, and I want to, when I see that something's broken, I want to be the one to go in and fix it.
Mhm.
He said, I'm not building a company for the next year or 10 years. I'm building a company for the next 100 years. And he said, in order for me to do that, I have to teach them when somebody does something and it's either not to the standard, or they just mess it up. Like my intuition is to go in and do the thing and to fix it and get my hands dirty. So, but the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, is to elevate them up, because it's the thems, right? It's the team,
Mhm.
it's the everybody else that we task and rely on, that's going to ultimately build a company that doesn't just last a year or 10 years, but is a millennial type company
Yep.
that does, incredible things. Um and so you don't have to look far and pay very close attention to pick up the clues that very successful people have left for us, to say, like, what are the essential ingredients. Like, you have to be a visionary, you have to be resilient, you have to have passion, you have to have a lot of the things that you bring to the equation, uh, and then you have to have the humility to say, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know what the correct course of action is. And just because I'm the CEO or I'm the boss
Right.
doesn't mean that
That
I
you know
can't ask
everything.
questions and that
Yeah.
I'm going to have all the answers, right? And that's why it's so important to have advisors and mentors and things. And I learned that really early on, but it took me a couple of years in business of just being too egoed up and prideful and afraid. I was afraid that if people knew how the state of the business really was, that I would I was just worried about being judged for it, and I
Yeah.
was worried about, like,
Losing
things that I should
credibility.
losing credibility. And
Yeah.
yeah, and just like, but fear is just the anticipation of future pain. Like, I was worried about things that hadn't happened.
Right.
And then a mentor finally, one guy that I knew that was in business, was successful, when I really didn't have anywhere else to turn. There was no more running. There was no more robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, it was just I was there swirling the toilet bowl. So I shot a text out to this guy and I said, "Look, I I've been saying that everything's fine, that business is great, taking the fake it till you make it approach, and it turns out when you fake it and you're being a fraud faking it, you're not going to make it very far. And I don't know many people that have done it. That's very different than being resilient and tenacious. And
Yeah.
you
But
know,
but easily confused. I could see, like,
y-
if you're not you
yeah.
don't have a better perspective, like, you could be like, "Oh, yeah, fake it till you make it," could mean more than one thing.
And you're just shutting the door too to people who are totally capable of helping you, totally willing to help.
Right.
Like, you're not even opening the door and welcoming their guidance and advice, and
Mhm.
and saying, "Hey, you've been in this
It's
business
almost
longer
a
than I have."
pressure sometimes to think or to appear that you know everything that it takes. There's, like, this pressure sometimes, I think, for, in business and whatnot, and I'm you know, I see it more and more, and, even experiencing it myself
Yeah.
sometimes. Sometimes it's like, "You know what? I don't know the answer to that."
Yeah.
I'm gonna find out and I will get back to you.
Yeah.
Because as I call myself, refer to myself as an expert, it makes me a little bit like nervous because I do with women's health because I think I know a lot more than most people do. And I
Yeah.
know the things that have changed my life and, made my life better. And I know the sacrifices and the prices I pay for not doing it right.
Mhm.
But I'm not a doctor and I'm not a researcher. Like I research, but I'm not like in the lab coat, like I mentioned.
You don't have
So
to. You really don't have
right.
to.
But I'm okay now with telling people because they'll come with me and they'll be like, oh, here's my blood, what do you think my blood work says? And I'm like, I'm not good at reading blood work. Like blood work's that is a whole monster in its own,
It
like
is.
levels and understanding. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, or I'll just tell, like, I will just tell people, like, I know that you think, that I probably know everything about this, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And there are things that I thought a year ago that I don't think anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that's going to, like, I'm constantly with new knowledge. I'm going to change how I say things and what I'm talking about
Yeah.
because we didn't know this a year ago,
Mhm.
or I didn't know this a year ago. And
Yeah.
so, like, I'm always going to be adjusting.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of applies in that sense of like what you're saying is like,
Mhm.
I have to be very transparent that, there's still a lot of things I don't know.
Mhm.
But what I think I do know, I think I can make a big difference with. And I'm going to
Yeah.
continue to learn and I'm going to continue to be a voice that bridges the gap between the doctors and the people.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, and like Henry Ford is a perfect example of this, right? Because that guy was completely bucking the entire system of transportation, and he's inventing this thing that's going to move people away from horse and buggy to this automobile. And what did he know about all of the things that it took? Like he was a visionary and thought like we can put a motor on this thing, and this is how the damn thing will work, right? But of course, now you're talking about transportation, and the government wants to get involved. So he's called up to Congress or whoever in the government's like questioning him, saying, "What? Why should we trust you with this? What do you know about this? You're not an engineer. You're not, a this. You're not a that." And he says, "You're right. I'm not." He said, "But at the push of the button, I have the top engineer. I have the top mechanical, this person, the top scientist, that person." He said,
Right.
So it's the team, right? So
Yep.
you, if you have to say, I don't know the answer to that, it's not a knock on your credibility. It's like, that's not my,
That's
you
not
do,
my
you
area.
want,
Yeah.
you,
But
here,
I can find it for you. I can get it for you. Or I build a team that can,
y-
let me direct you to this
build the
person that's
team,
expert.
build the team.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, surround yourself with people who are like, that's not my thing, but let me text my chief of operations, or let me call my chief medical director, or
Yep.
and
Exactly.
then it's like, because you're the visionary, you're looking up and out, you're the one saying, this is the opportunity, this is the gap, this is what you've done your entire life to get you to the point to where you have the ears and the eyes and the attention and the name and the brand and the passion, and you, like,
Mhm.
your entire life has led you to this point, and it's not by happenstance or by luck. Like, you've worked for it. And so no matter what you're an expert in, you're never going to be an expert in all the things,
Right.
especially if what you're wanting to do is really changing a system or people's minds or their lives.
Yeah.
So it's just the Henry Ford approach, where it's like it's who
I
you
love that.
surround
I
yourself
didn't
with.
actually even I didn't know that. I mean, I obviously knew who Henry Ford was, but I didn't know his story. I
Yeah,
never
nobody
looked
has
into
a
it.
nobody,
It's
and
really interesting.
yeah, and I completely align with the whole perspective that you have on college as well. By the way, my son knows. I'm like, "Bud, unless you're going to go into something where you have to have a degree,
Mhm.
uh, do not go to college.
Right.
By the time you get through 4 years of college, in today's world, not even like what the landscape will look like when your kids are of age to go to college, but today he goes and spends 4 years in college versus 4 years of on the job with AI and with the
Yeah.
entire landscape of
Right.
business. Like,
Right.
he will, that information is going to be obsolete. I
Yeah.
I I
You will
tell
have
him,
lost time. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's kind of like the point you made earlier about how much time is spent going to grade school, and what are you a master at, right? And it's like
Nothing.
so I don't value college. I mean, I do insert. I mean, I work with clinicians that spent many years of college, but that's what they have to do. They have to get those degrees. They have like they're doing
Yeah.
stuff that, like you said, the labs and things.
Yep.
It's a science and it's an
Right.
art,
Yeah.
and
There is
um,
something that those that the traditional model can
for
be
sure,
beneficial.
for
I
sure,
still wish, though, even in those models, that there was more root cause thinking, problem
yeah,
solving, as opposed to, because the doctors, they come
yeah,
out with this education, unless they're naturopaths,
yeah,
and maybe some for DO, but like medical doctors are not educated to actually heal people.
yeah.
I'm sure they're well meaning. I bet
They
you
are.
most, like 90% of doctors that
Mhm.
go to school want to help people,
Yeah,
want to
they're
help
just
people get better.
indoctrinated.
Yeah, but the system, the actual formulation of the education
Mhm.
isn't set up to cure people or help people. It's
Yeah.
set up to prescribe a pill.
Yeah, and, they wouldn't even disagree with you because,
I know, they know it.
they know it. They're like, "We didn't learn anything about
Yeah, yeah,
nutrition. We didn't learn anything about," I mean, it's a specialty to go into the integrative health, functional health, like,
right.
they have to go for additional education and coursework to be able to learn the root cause related stuff and how things weave together and
How
ha
nutrition actually works in the body,
yeah, yeah, so I mean,
which is
they'll
wild to me that a doctor, that they wouldn't teach that to doctors.
it
It's
is
just so
wild.
wild to me because I'm like,
Yeah,
that's the foundation of our health. Like, what are we
yeah.
talking about here? But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, functional medicine should be like that should be
the standard.
prerequisites of in
Eh,
med school, right? You would
Yeah.
think, and they do agree with it, and of course, we're not talking about like the broad swath of all doctors out there. DOs, yes, I think they definitely have a leg up because of the whole body way of doing
hmm
things, and DOs that are in the integrative health, functional health space. I've seen be able to treat patients in ways that others can't because of how
Yeah.
the hands-on approach. Um, but yeah, I totally agree. And you don't need a lab coat, by the way. Graham Hancock is like that dude is. Do you know who he is by chance? He's
I don't
been
know
on
why it
Joe's
sounds so
show a bunch of
familiar.
times. He's been on Joe
I
Rogan.
probably do, but off the top of my head, I'm not recalling.
He basically he doesn't have a lab coat either, but he considers himself to be like a in independent journalist is what he
Yeah.
considers himself to be. But the guy, when it comes to archaeology, when it comes to like he has this real belief system based on dedicated his entire life to going to these ancient sites that there was an ancient technology and civilization. Like some of the things that even today we have no answers for. The cores that have been drilled out in Egypt that are, you know, out of stone that there's no understanding of the tools that could have done that, right? And um
Aliens. I'm just kidding.
y-
Uh,
or not,
yeah,
that's
we're
now we
not.
get
No, I
into
know.
the
It's wild to think
Book of
about those
Enoch, but
pyramids and stuff, though, too. Like, I mean, how it was like built and stuff. Is like,
what's even weird
how
is
did
what's
they
underneath the
do that?
pyramids.
Oh, I bet.
That's what's even weirder. That's good. That could be a whole separate topic. But my point is that he gets called out often by geologists, right? And by scientists. And he's like, I'm not trying to be a scientist. Like he's very
Mhm.
but pound for pound, and Joe's had him on his show with other like experts, and Graham Hancock has mopped the floor with them. So you don't need a lab coat in order to be an
Yeah.
expert. And I
Yep.
guess that my point of that is that don't let that self-doubt creep in because that's where imposter syndrome can come from, right?
Right.
And you'll start to
You're
see
so
yourself as
right.
an imposter because you're like, oh, I don't have this degree or this,
Right.
thing. I don't walk around with the stethoscope around, and you don't.
No, I'm somebody who cares deeply,
Yeah,
and I know more than most, and it
yeah,
made a difference for me. So, like, I feel good about being
yeah.
able to share what I know, and
Just be
also being
accurate.
honest about what I don't.
Yeah,
Like, I will never fabricate or pretend to
mhm,
know more than I do,
yeah,
and I have a humble approach with
yeah.
everyone.
And
Everybody's different too, so I'm not also to categorize people too. Like, it's not what I'm here to do.
well,
But
I mean, we're it's not like we're cookie cutter, humans. Like we're complex beings, and so it's not like even what you're specializing in and what your focus is going to be the solution for everybody. It's just,
mhm.
I mean, that's just never going to
Yeah.
be the case.
It's more of a concept. That's what I want. It's like, I mean, at least at this point, and if you take nothing else away, it's the concept is that, as a woman, it's okay to give yourself permission to show up differently every
Yeah,
day. That's the main takeaway.
Mm,
You do not have to show up consistently like your husband or your brother or the other, men are usually able to do that better than women. It's okay. I was like, we're just
yeah.
different.
Yeah, you're not giving yourself enough credit. Like, that's 100% true, but what you're doing is rooting it in science and
Yes,
research
absolutely.
and fact, and so it's like um I thank you for saying it that way because it's the easy way for the dumb 8 guy to be able to process, "Oh, I
Well,
can,"
some people aren't ready to take the deep dive on it yet too, so
Yeah.
sometimes giving someone that first, because if they've never, it's like, "Well, it's way too much," and, sometimes the argument that I do hear when I hear from men is like, "Well, that's not an excuse, for her." I was like, "That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's an excuse. What I'm saying is that there's more going on than being understood, and when we can work with systems, we generally get better results."
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you
Yeah.
don't put your
Yeah.
car in reverse and drive at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Mhm.
Doesn't work well.
Mhm.
It wouldn't work at all.
Mhm.
So why do we think that that is, the best way to approach, a female who is not, consistent every day?
Yeah.
It's just not how we were designed. But it doesn't have to be that complicated either. It really doesn't. There's a lot of, simple things that can, be done and adjusted to make changes that make a big difference, and that's what I'm here to do and say. But no, I wanna build out programs, and I wanna eventually someday I wanna have my own wellness centers. I mean, big picture, I'd love to build is where we can franchise these out, and I will have that team that's like, the research. I want to inspire more research for women. I
Mhm.
wanna facilitate it. I want more research done.
Yeah.
Most research out there is done on men because you guys are consistent. Every day, your hormonal profiles don't shift very much. So it's easy to understand and be able to isolate the X factor.
Yeah.
But for women, we have the estrous cycle. Even for mice, did you know that most mice, when they're have to include women where the estrous cycle would skew data, they will sterilize the female mice. So you're not getting an accurate look at what data would say for
To a
women.
female, yeah.
Well, they would love to. I'm sure the scientists, at least that I know,
Uh,
are like telling the federal government that's giving them the grants, we need 2 grants.
I don't understand
Realistically,
why how
but they won't do it. They're like, "No, you
so
get
it's
1
basically a male
grant
study.
and you have to study women."
It's either a male study and or for a female that's had,
But it's not. Yeah, you're right, but it's not.
oh,
So when it comes to, like, how do we dose Advil? When women are in the luteal phase, there's a very strong argument that the way that medication affects us in that phase because of, like, the slowing down of the muscles in this like, your stomach, your digestive tract, affects us differently.
mm,
That's, you know, it could be problematic. Maybe it's not. I mean, I don't, but that's very interesting, right? That it could affect us entirely differently in the first half of our cycle or our second half. And depending on the medication, should maybe be dosed differently or should be addressed differently,
mhm,
right? That's not even something men have to think about.
mhm.
And I don't think many women do think about, but maybe science should think about. Can we get money to study women?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Oh boy, do we need a big budget.
a real
We
big
need a
budget,
real
because
big
it's
budget to
complicated.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, when we have 2 primary hormones that do totally different things that switch on us halfway through the month, and you sprinkle in a little testosterone, it'll feel great, and then we move into, like, the most challenging part of the cycle, which I would say for most women is that luteal phase. It's leading up to the cycle.
Mhm.
Of course, there are physical symptoms with the cycle that, for a lot of women are not too problematic, but for some women, but usually only really problematic when the other parts are bad. I don't think that
Meaning
the actual cycle, the actual bleed, you talk about cramping and all this stuff.
mhm,
I don't believe that that part is supposed to be really painful and intense for women. I think usually what's happening is that there's an imbalance in the hormones, which is causing that to be worse, more symptoms, because we don't have things moving together to create a nice, easy transition
mm,
between the hormones. It's more like, this jagged transition of everything going on in the female. It's like clunky and
mhm,
it's like hard for the body to transition. So the symptoms are it's worse and it sucks more.
mhm.
But if you get everything moving smoothly, then usually it's not that difficult to navigate. I mean, I look forward to the part that I find the most challenging is before the cycle. Right before. Like that week before, my husband knows, like, don't talk to me about hard things.
Mm.
That's not the time to come to me and talk to me about like big life decisions. Like We gotta bring it down. Like, I can't handle more
Mhm.
because it's already feels like a lot. I'm already going through a lot.
You go so many different directions with this as far as, like, even, for professional women and their calendar and when should you take certain meetings and, like, what immediately when you say, like,
Absolutely.
don't like, I should make important, it's like, so does that like, for women that are, on a board or they're running big companies, like, should
100%.
they be thinking about that? And
I think so.
could you map out, in a way that would make sense to say, y sh these kinds of meetings should happen during these times,
Yes.
and if you were to do that, the probability of success
Mhm.
increases by X, right? And, like, imagine if that were to
I
be correct, if that would be a thing,
I would put money on that.
I
I would put money on
then
that.
everybody, this is Miesha Tate's idea. Yeah, I would do is that needs to be part of your programs because that is a that I first of all, money-wise, that's a that's a moneymaker for you, for sure, and the impact-wise, because when you're talking about women that are in these power positions and they're making decisions on behalf of a lot of people, especially if it's like a publicly traded company or it's
Mhm.
just a large
Yes.
company with a large number of employees, like as an executive, that's that trickle down effect, right? And
Mhm.
so, we've seen companies, Budweiser and Jaguar. We've seen some companies that have made some very poor decisions recently, and I don't know if in either case it's women that were. I think Budweiser was it was a marketing gal, but anyways, um, like one decision can torment a company
Absolutely.
and cost a lot, and it takes Dana White with the UFC to come back and
Right.
and breathe life back into Budweiser, right?
Right,
So
right.
I mean,
And, like, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I think with mindfulness, women can make great decisions at any time in the month.
sure,
But when we are fighting against our hormones and things are awry and
yeah,
we have too high of stress, everything gets harder.
yeah,
Everything. It
it's
doesn't even matter
strategy,
what time in the
yeah,
cycle that specialists. And they can say men are easy to fix. One primary hormone, simple. We
for
can
sure,
fix you in like a week. You're going to feel better.
for sure,
For women, it's tricky. It takes
mhm,
months.
mhm.
Well, we have to go through an entire 28 days before we have an opportunity to try the hormone profile over.
Yeah,
You get that every single
oh
day. It's
yeah,
like, so for us,
oh yeah.
when we hurt ourselves,
Mhm.
when we crush our primary hormones with stress,
Mhm.
the impact, the magnitude of that is much bigger and it's much more harmful to
Yeah.
us
You know
than
who
it
else you
is.
could, benefit by teaming up with are these docs that help with fertility, these fertility docs,
Yep.
because that's a real struggle for them, right? Is they have to wait for the cycle. They have to wait for a very
Right.
specific time
Yep.
before they can do certain things. And if they
Yep.
miss that window, their patient has to wait an additional full 30 days,
Yeah.
right? So there's an element of what you're talking about that I think could be brought forward to fertility doctors and um, probably through education of their patients. And I think there's something there too. I was just
I love
talking
that.
to
I
a
mean,
client.
I'm taking my mental notes.
Yeah, it's going to be recorded, so you can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll circle back to it for sure. But no,
yeah,
this is great because those are all things that I want to explore and it's limitless. I have a general direction I want to go
yeah,
and it starts with helping people.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm super super thankful for this opportunity to sit down and get to talk to you about all this stuff because there's no shortage of content out there about Miesha Tate, the fighter, the world champion. But the there's so much more to you. So I'm really thrilled that we had a little bit of time talking UFC, talking
Yeah, it's a part of the
jujitsu and
story.
things. It's a part of the story. I mean, and it's a major part of again, it's like, what you're bringing forward. I mean, it's that world
Well,
champion mindset that
yeah.
you're now channeling to helping women in a very interesting way. And honestly, I've in a way that I've had countless conversations, Misha. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I have hundreds upon hundreds of doctors that I've worked with in clinics and things over the years. And many of them are in the women's health and nobody's explained it. that way. Nobody's
Right.
no, I don't know anybody who is addressing. Now, I don't know if you're the first or not, but I can tell you that from my experience in working with a lot of high profile docs and clinics and things,
Mhm.
um, they're not they're not focused on that. So I think that's super
Thank
exciting.
you.
And what better person, than a world champion who has a genuine passion for this. It's a really cool transition, to see. And so
Well,
yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that, and, I'm just gonna continue to do what feels right, and this is the one. Painting with a broad stroke is making the world a better place, and that's was just helping people with what I know. So,
yeah,
I hope it does. I hope it helps, and I know that, to my knowledge, there are not very many people or women doing this right now that are
yeah.
talking about women specifically. There are a couple out there, but, I have a unique I don't think there's any that are former athletes,
Mm,
um, mom of
yeah.
2, like, that
Gymnasts
perspective.
would be a huge population as well, the way
Yeah.
that their bodies get rocked too, that
Oh, yeah. There's also better ways to like, better times of the cycle to compete, so even
oh,
understanding that, if
yeah.
there's any, you know, way to influence that, and in fighting there is.
Well, you gotta make people buy the program in order to get these answers.
Yeah.
You
Right.
have
Hit subscribe.
hey, subscribe. Do you have a website yet, or where do you
Yeah.
want people to go to?
Yeah, it's MieshaTate.com.
Okay.
So we are, yeah, we're shaking and moving. We're doing things. I think that most of the information you're going to find that's really built out right now is going to be on my social media platforms. That's where I would head to see this stuff reflected in a really deep and meaningful way.
Yeah,
Or subscribe to my newsletter.
perfect.
We are moving full bore with that. So that's so exciting, to
Yeah,
be able to reach people on a regular basis and provide
yeah,
this information in collaboration with experts and people that are, teaching me the science behind it. So that's always been a passion of mine is to like bridge the gap between the
yeah.
athlete or the woman, the person, and the really smart people.
Yeah. I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of women who, I mean, are jumping in joy for what it is that you're working on, and guys as well. And so you've got a lot of things coming down the hopper. So I certainly think that it would be wise to get on that newsletter. So MieshaTate.com,
Yep.
hit subscribe.
Yeah.
Misha, thank you again. I really appreciate
Thank
this.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
You're welcome. Bye bye, everybody.